Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Americans used to be welcomed across Europe. Today, many are met with suspicion or outright frustration. So, why are ugly Americans increasingly being looked upon in the EU? And how much of that reputation is earned, and how much is political fallout? So, let's explore this while we're at it. Well, everybody, I really want to give my opinion on this since I've lived in Europe during the 70s, the 80s, 90s, and the first half of up until 2010. So I've got a lot of experience being stationed all over Europe, and I really loved it. And I personally never wanted to come back to the U.S. because it was so great. But now, seeing how things are, it's becoming a different situation here in the future as things start to develop. Now, French President Emmanuel Macron publicly rebuked his tone, framing it as intimidation or bullying of European partners. Trump's speech has really burnt a lot of bridges here. And it's going to be a long time before we get anything productive out of the EU and NATO. And they're going to be really critical and hesitant helping the U.S. down in the future. Independent surveys show European perceptions of the U.S. have shifted significantly. Grassroots actions in Europe, such as boycotts of U.S. products, have also reflected rising anti-American sentiment connected to tariff disputes and trade tensions. So things are happening out there. I mean, overall, most Europeans that work around U.S. military bases, they're not going to really change too much because they have a lot of ties to the population there. My father has, before he died, had a lot of German friends, long standing in the places that he was stationed there. And I really grew up appreciating how these German Americans and others in Europe that have spent most of their lives there really treated you. However, some Europeans may think twice about U.S. traveling and embody negative stereotypes, especially when politics are prominent. Previous polls and media reports from 2025 indicate some Europeans found Americans to be rude, entitled, or broader political tensions may have made travel plans more sensitive for some. Now, I will tell you, I can give you a little analogy. When I was stationed in West Berlin, one of my roommates in the platoon, he went out drinking with some Europeans at a pub, and he got talking into politics and got himself beaten badly, and they dumped him out in a cemetery. It's a good thing all he did is walk away with some black eye and some bruises around his back of his neck. But that was something I learned very quickly. Try to stay away from politics with Europeans because they're very keen on a lot of things, and you just don't want to get yourself in a situation, especially where alcohol is involved. And there's a lot of protests going on. Don't be walking in there when these protests are happening. You're going to ask for a buttload of trouble. I mean, serious trouble. Something you just don't want to do unless you just want to look for a one-way ticket to a hospital. Now, moving along to other things, you've got to really look at what's happening in Europe with security and other things. France has experienced a lot of terrorist incidents and high crime, which is going to be affecting things. Now, here's what Europeans really think about American tourists and why they tolerate. And I mean that key word, tolerate. That's something that, a lot of Americans don't understand. They're tolerating us. Reportedly, these experts were recruited by representatives from 4 of the heavily visited European countries: France, Germany, Spain, and Italy. So there's these the information comes from these 4 countries. Now, the best and worst, the U.S. is number 3, behind Australia and Germany as far as visitors. Now, moving along to some of these things are only demerits per French sources that Americans complain about requiring air conditioning, and they turn up their noses at French delicacies. Just don't do it in front of people. I mean, take the time to learn about what things to eat and that you want. I mean, a lot of Americans, what kills me, goes to any country, and the first thing you want to do is McDonald's. Don't do it. A funny story here. In Paris, I went to the McDonald's just down in Pig Alley, and it was 6 a.m, and there was this drunk on the table to my left as I'm standing in line, and he's vomiting. Oh my God, it was horrible, horrible experience. But that's the only reason I went to McDonald's. I needed something early in the morning before anything opened up to eat. And otherwise, I enjoy going to French cafes and eating a fresh croissant with chocolate chips in it. Oh my God, that with a good espresso. Now, going back to the Spaniards, they cite our lack of respect for local customs, along with our historical and cultural ignorance. Again, know what you're doing when you go there. Just don't, go there looking like Ray Charles. What's this? Have some knowledge beforehand, and then let the tour guides help you along. And then the other thing that they said about from the Spaniards, that they're self-entitled, rude, and demanding, and will keep you waiting for hours. Oh, I'm sorry, that was the Italians. So that's really something to watch out for. When I was in Rome, you can't really sit down anywhere. Most of the public spaces are taken, and you sit down at a restaurant, there's a seat charge just to sit there, nothing else. So you want to sit down there, go ahead, be my guest, you're paying for it. Oh God. But yeah, it's really something to behold of watching Americans come to Europe. I was lucky to grow up as a military brat in Europe and be stationed there most of my military career. Now, some of these surveys, reveal that just the Europeans really think about Americans. It's not all bad, really. It's some of the typical stuff you would think, but you got to be careful in the heavily tourist areas, especially in France, because the French might, won't talk to you in English, respond, they'll speak to you in French and turn their nose up at you. Some of the complaints from rowdy behavior to overcrowding, tourists are burned to bad rap from locals, with Americans often seen as the loudest and presumptuous ones. That's the big thing I've seen of all these surveys. Americans are immediately recognized by how loud they are. Tone down, quiet, and shut up. Americans cannot shut their mouths. They get so loud talking to each other. And I have a bad habit because my hearing's bad. But you go there, you're just making yourself a target. First of all, for pickpockets, the thieves that want to take everything because they know you're just waiting to be targeted. So go ahead, keep your mouth open, and they're going to get you. And I'll just say, hey, sorry, it's just the way it happens. Now, nearly 3/4 believe Americans have a bad reputation overseas. 80% blame politics as tariffs skewing what Europeans think of the U.S. So we view ourselves worse than we really are at times, but it's becoming worse as our politics really start hurting us. When two Greek ships hit each other back in 91, a Turkish ship and a Greek ship collided. I was in Istanbul, Turkey, getting a haircut, and the first thing the barber asked me, "What do you think of the Greeks?" I thought, "Uh-oh, avoid being trapped. Just be nice for everybody. If they know you're American, they're going to take a question and see if they can just set you off, and you just don't want to get yourself into a situation you can't get out of." And again, like this survey, most of Europeans find American tourists to be loud. 70% of respondents calling this their typical trait. Okay, that's kind of most of them here. Now look at this: Europeans view Americans the most negatively. Typically, spit that one out. From their survey, the Netherlands, Portugal, Belgium, Denmark, Sweden. So you got to understand, Denmark's probably going to go up there just a little bit higher as time goes along, and that goes along. The most welcoming, going back to this one here, is France. Oh no, I'm sorry. The least welcoming is France, Hungary, Norway, Denmark, and Spain. And so you got to see France and Denmark. They're going to be like that. And then moving along here, how Europeans really feel about American tourists. This was done last year. Okay. They surveyed 3,000 across Europe and the U.S. So 1 in 4 Europeans have a negative view of American tourists. So 1 in 4, which is 27%, have negative views. And then over half of Americans some level of concern of how they're perceived when traveling overseas, and that's good. I hope they understand that you got to watch what you say and do. Then, of course, American tourists, top of it is they're loud across the board, and that's the biggest thing I can keep saying. Watch how loud you are, because you're making yourself a target. Yeah, that's it. Loud. 70% said they're typical American tourists. Almost identical, 69 Americans who agree. So it's both ways, understanding that perception. So work with that. And then Americans are far more likely think they're viewed as arrogant while traveling. I've seen it, and you got to be careful. Trying to be yelling at someone in English and "Oh, you don't speak English? Come on, don't do that." Just 1 in 5 Europeans say recent political events like tariff news have changed the views of American tourists. And the way things are going politically, people are shaped by their politics in Europe. So be very wary of that. And one of the things I recommend, don't dress like an American. Come on, just tone your clothes down. Don't look like you just came out of bed. Europeans don't do at all what we dress in the U.S. Americans are sloppy dressers now. So, if anything, you got to look at what you're doing. 61%, they expect everyone to speak English. I kind of mentioned that before, and you got to learn some of the language, just the basics of the language. And then, which states get the worst reputation? Well, kind of interesting. The MAGA folks in Florida and Texas are the lead the way. So you just got to be careful. And then countries least annoyed by American tourists, and you kind of see where they're at. It's again countries that are welcoming, again where they're at. So get yourself, well aware of what you're going to travel, and watch what you're doing. France has led the way, making it the country most likely to call itself welcoming to Americans. Now, when I went to Paris back in the 90s, the best time to go is in the early springtime. The crowds are not bad, and the people are nicer when there's not the big crowds. The vendors and everybody, they're a lot better to you. I've been there when it's crowded, early 2000s, and it's just very difficult to get through and do things. Now, when asked which countries they thought viewed as the least favorable, 47% of Americans picked France. Turns out to be right. And then who gets annoyed by American tourists? Well, you got 18% Portugal, Belgium's, same top of the list of countries where locals felt they feel annoyed by American tourists. So there's surveys here. They're going to be updated probably this next year. So if you're traveling, just be forewarned. It's being forearmed. Nearly 40% of Netherlands, about 38% of Portugal and Belgium said they had a negative view of American tourists. Okay, and just be aware, this is growing. Norway topped the list at 44%, saying the election has impacted how they viewed American travelers, followed by a few other countries. So it is a lot to look at, and I would say look at what is happening. Interact with people, be patient. Don't be acting like you're in a hurry, being pushy, because you're just not going to get there. Stand there, be patient, and Europeans will see you. They know you're there, and they will serve you. They're very good, very good. I mean, they have their services are better than what you get even in Vegas. And then you look at there's countries that have updated their U.S. travel guidance. A growing number of countries issued travel advisories for the U.S., including Canada and several European countries. And a lot of this is tied to the executive orders that issued for transgender identification. Can't use it anymore. Well, people who have that in their passports are going to have problems when they go into Europe. So that's really going to help, really hurt the folks that have transgender identification in their passports. Many of the EU countries issued travel warnings that have flagged by White House executive orders state if the policy in the United States is to recognize two sexes, male, female, potentially causing issues for transgender travelers with self-identified or X-gender markers on their passports. The recent uptick in travel warnings has already caused a major impact on U.S. tourism. So really got to start watching what you're doing there. And this affects those people in the transgender community. You're going to have to get your passport changed in order to get through Europe. Maybe you can take it and deal with it, but they might just turn you around. There's a high possibility of that. And then, of course, this I pulled up. France has got a lot of problems. Believe it or not, terrorists targeting transportation hubs. There's been several attacks in France in recent years. The other thing is that strikes in France happen a lot, and Italy too. With rail, shipping, and other stuff. So anything with public transportation, it gets affected. So be aware of that, especially if you're in large cities like Marseille, Paris, and other places. And then all the little crime. You're allowed American crimes is theft, passport theft, pickpocketing, bag snatching, and muggings happen a lot on the train lines and going to and from the airport. So you're going to have to be very careful. That's where they target, right outside airports and stuff. Once you get out that outer layer of security with the French, with uniform machine gun security, you're on your own. Oh God! And then looking at, do U.S. citizens need a visa for Europe? ETIAS is coming in 2026, and what this is, once in effect, Americans will need one additional approval to enter countries in the EU. To visit, you have to apply for approval under the European Travel Information and Authorization System. This new system, got to be able to get past this hurdle. This originally planned to take in 2024, but it's been delayed quite a bit. It's not scheduled to go into effect until last quarter 2026. So don't get caught off guard by not having this prepared. And I think there was one other note on that. No, but there's going to be additional costs for that. And then Americans in the race for the European resident seeing doors slammed shut. This is where, if you want to retire in the EU, you're going to have problems because they're shutting the door down on Americans getting European passports in countries. So if you plan to retire there, look at the immigration rules because they're tightening just like the U.S. is. And then, looking at traveling, there's just a lot of things happening in the EU with rallies. Like I said, I mentioned about the rallies, avoid all of them. European tourist, there's just a lot of negativity happening. Again, look at this. I mean, right here.
Det handler om retten til at være, om respekt for folk og grænser, om at små samfund ikke skal presses.
And as you see the sign, it's not in English, but you see the sign, Yankee Go Home. This is in Greenland, but there's a lot of this in Denmark, France, the UK. So it's a lot of places. So just, watch yourself. Avoid these like the plague. And again, the U.S. image declines in many nations amid low confidence in Trump. No kidding. I mean, it's just horrible how the U.S. is declining in all these countries. And I'm not going to go into this. I mean, it's going to be growing and changing as time goes along. But just be aware and adjust yourself for what's going to happen, because it could have impact on what you're doing and where you're going and exactly what you'll be doing there. So take the time. I do recommend this for veterans. There's a USO shop right across from the Eiffel Tower. You can get great tickets to tourist attractions there very cheaply. And then the same thing in Rome. Go to the USO office, and they can also at those locations book you a stay at some of these local places, which are really nice if you're looking at staying a couple of weeks. They're really good. So that's just a tidbit of my recommendation from all my time. So the whole point here is really look at the view of our neighbors. They're our neighbors on the other side of the pond. And for me, a lot of dear friends in those countries that I've grown to love dearly. So I appreciate your time in this. Again, what we have to do is get our government on track to work with our EU allies. Contact your congressman, your state senator. The number is above me to contact them and let them know that, hey, we don't need to hurt our alliances. Our American foreign policy is broken and really bad. The wheels have come off. So we've got to make changes. Until there's a better day, I want to say this: take care of yourself, take care of your family, take care of your neighbors, take care of your community, and God bless the USA.